Today, on Be Something Wonderful, what let go and let God really means. I am your host, Tom Karen, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. I heard from one of you that said, Tom, Neville Goddard talks about that we don't have free will, that we can imagine our wish fulfilled, that we can select our imagined end, but then after that, free will ends. And I've been brought up in a Christian background with the idea to let go or let God, that things happen according to God's will. But I'm just now confused. I mean, what free will do I have, and do I have free will, and how does God fit into that? Well, guys, we're going to talk about this today and more. So here's really how I want to start. That if you remember that Dr. Joe Dispenza and really all scientists and really all the spiritual greats talk about this, that an atom or physical matter or what we're made up of is 99.9999% empty space, or in other words, energy, or in other words, potential to be something. And that the 0.00001% is manifested physical matter or something. So we're more nothing than something, or in other words, we're more potential to be something than we are something. Do you hear this? So when we're focused on that 0.00001% of physical matter, we're focused on moving the effects around. We're focused on we have free will to move that around, to take action in physical reality, to try to affect the effects, to try to change that physical matter. And we also have free will to choose what we want to be, do, or have. But after that, the free will ends. Why? Because it's now in the hands of that greater will, or God's will, or that 99.9999% of potential. We influence that potential by choosing, by imagining what we want, by living in that end. But how that happens, when that happens, where that happens, is up to God, or God's will, or the quantum will, or the interconnection of all there is, was, or ever be. Do you hear this? So yes, we have free will to move effects around and take action, but that's puny. And it's nothing compared to the potential of what we can be, do, or have. When we let go and let God, or when we let go and let that divine will, that greater power that works through us and with us to manifest our desires. Do you hear this? It doesn't work alone, but when we're going alone with our free will, we are alone. And we're not connected to that greater will. So let's hit this. And in Luke 22:42, Jesus says this. This is the night before the crucifixion. This is when Jesus was feeling the weight of what was going to happen the next day. And even with Judas betraying him, right? All of this was going on in his mind, right? And so this is what he says, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. What was Jesus saying here? Well, what's the cup? The cup's full of suffering felt when you have thoughts of separation, lack, and doubt. Jesus was doubting here. He still had faith. He had faith with him, right? The disciples that represent faith and love and judgment were with him, right, in the garden. But that cup is full of all that thoughts of separation or lack and doubt. So Jesus is saying, take this from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. He understood that it's not his 3D will to make something happen, to fix this, right? But it was God's will, right? Removing this cup from me represents the yielding of your personal will to the divine will. This is where Jesus reasserted that power within him, right? That gave it to God, right? That's what we're talking about here. The Buddha said life is suffering because we see everything as separate from us. That's why, right? Life is suffering if we see everything separate from us. If we don't see us connected to that matrix of all there is, was, or ever be, or to that God that we don't see ourselves one with God or one with that divine will. We're one with that divine will. So when we try to go it alone, we're pushing against it, right? Because we see everything as separate from us, thoughts of limitation, dissatisfaction, we don't see the permanence of the love behind the appearances, right? So Jesus was just looking at the appearances, right? The doubt started to seep in. But then he continued to pray. He continued to persist in that feeling like we do of our wish fulfilled, of our imagined end, right? And then giving that to God, or in other words, giving it to that higher will, right? So that's what we're talking about this morning. And no free will means there is a greater will or power orchestrating all the people, events, and circumstances that ever is, was, or ever be. That's what we mean by no free will. It means God's will, or that love of the quantum, or the will of the quantum field of infinite intelligence, has all of the information that ever is, was, or ever be, and is orchestrating everything. But when we try to make something happen, when we try to control that 0.0001% of manifested reality by trying to mold it or change it, right? We're now going against that greater will. That's why it feels like struggle and exhaustion. Right? And this is what Dr. Joe Dispenza says, when our will matches its will, when our minds match its mind, when our love for life matches its love for life, we are enacting this universal consciousness. Wow. We become the elevated power that transcends the past, heals the present, and opens the doors to the future. That's what Dr. Joe Dispenza was talking about. Right? He was saying it as well. Your will matches that divine will. You give it to God. That's what let God really means, right? So you have free will to choose, right? You have the free will to choose, right? And there's only one choice if you are to align with God's will, right? It's about choosing to align to God's will, or in other words, to give your personal will to God. Right? And so that's where you have that. You're either choosing from love or you're choosing from fear. Right? Fear is trying to hold on to things. You start doubting it and you start trying to make things happen through the will of your own. Right? Quantum field, divine matrix, infinite intelligence is an interconnected holographic web of every thought, feeling, action, thing, person, event, belief there ever is, was, or ever be. Just think about this. Right? When you're trying to take any action in the 3D from fear or from trying to make something happen, right? Not from an aligned place with God's will or that higher will, not from an aligned place where you're aligned with your wish fulfilled, where you're living in the end, right? Then everything is already determined, everything's already connected. You're looking at reality as reality. You're trying to change reality as reality. That's why it feels like you're not getting anywhere. That's why it feels like you can't control anything, right? Because that 99.9999% of who you are is all potential. You don't control that head on by taking action, full action in 3D, trying to wrestle that 99% into something. Right? It works from your intentions, from your feelings, from your thoughts, from belief, right? From resting in the end of what you want, right? Every part of that one energy contains the whole and is everywhere. That's God's will, right? It's already everywhere. That it's spontaneous and it almost seems out of control, right? Remember that the double slit experiment in quantum physics, where it would be a particle or a wave depending on the observer, right? And depending on whether it's observed. But when it's not, it's all over the place, right? It feels like it's going in and out of existence, almost in what seems like to be an uncontrollable manner. That spontaneity, that what looks like a lack of control, is that divine will work, and that's God's will. It's working in harmony with every thought, every feeling, every action, every person, every belief there ever is, was, or ever be. That's why that's why it's in and out and it feels uncontrollable. It's working in a greater harmony. There's a greater will going on, right? This is what Jesus said. I can of myself do nothing. And as I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. Jesus got it and understood this, that it's not him doing it through his 3D linear perspective, that through that 0.00001%, trying to control things through that. It's not, it's giving it to that higher will. Wow, that's big. So, be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God means go within and know your love, that you're not separate from anything. It means that's what it means let go and let God. It doesn't mean no activity or to escape or isolate yourself from negative influences. I think one of you wrote, what happens when the people around me are negative or my friends and I just don't want to be there. Sometimes I feel like I have to isolate myself. Guys, that says more about you than them. It really says what your alignment is. This means you're more aligned with that 0.0001% of physical matter, your will, than God's will, right? Because when you're aligned with source energy, when you're aligned with the power that creates worlds, when you have that power flowing through you, it doesn't matter who's around you and what negative attitudes they have. They can't persist in that love that you are. Right? So that's really what we're talking about. It's not about no activity. It's about aligning with that greater power, right? Rather, it means don't judge any of it, not to be attached to the activity, right? Either we have a positive attachment, meaning we really desire something and desire it so much that we get attached to it, that we need it. Or we have a negative attachment. We want to get rid of something, like these negative people. Either way, we're judging the activity. We're attached to the activity. It's simply letting the activity be, right? Going within. It's not that there's no activity. It means you're not judging it. It means nothing is unacceptable, right? And again, that you accept something doesn't mean you agree with it. It means that nothing's unacceptable in all there is, in all that is, because it's part of you, and you are that, right? Nothing is unacceptable because it's all part of that greater whole. Only by accepting what is, or current manifested reality, can you transcend it, right? Can you choose what you really want? The more you're focused on rejecting that 0.0001% or trying to change it or trying to get rid of it, or it's unacceptable to you, the more it stays a solid reality for you. It's only when you accept it as that one quantum possibility, not that you agree with it and then choose again out of love, not out of lack, not out of desperation, that you move and you create what you want. I think one of you even mentioned that Tom, but I've needed things to. I've prayed and prayed and prayed out of desperation before, and really needed something to be paid, and the bill got paid. So there's nothing. So that you can manifest from needing things and really wanting it. But that really, guys, wasn't the point. Some things can happen, but God doesn't listen to you. It's not. You didn't get that bill. You didn't manifest something because you were pleading and begging God out of desperation and out of fear. It was only because in a moment where you gave up, when you gave in to God's will, when you decided to surrender it, in that moment of non-resistance, you manifested that. But many times we think it's from the struggle. It's from the begging. It's from the pleading. It's from the desperation. It's from the really needing it that God gave it to us. Remember, God doesn't hear your pleas. God doesn't see that. It's impersonal in that way. God's just love, and God goes by what you're thinking, feeling, and believing, right? So, and only by accepting what is, or karma, can you transcend it. By bringing it in within you, because it's already within you, right? So, choose what you want, intend to be who you desire to be, and have what you want to have from love, from that oneness, not from fear and separation, not from fear and desperation. not from needing something and thinking that God's going to feel bad for you and just give it to you, right? It's only in your non-resistance that things come, right? It's only, there's no power in powerlessness, right? There's no power in desperately crying out that you need something. The power comes from aligning with God's will, from surrendering to that. That's the non-resistance. When you surrender to that knowing, having that greater knowing that all things are working out for you, everything is always working out for you and through you. Allowing, letting go, surrendering is about allowing that greater intelligence to orchestrate the events for you and through you. Not my will, but yours be done. It's that greater intelligence. That's what allowing, surrendering, and letting go means, right? God's will for you, absolute love and happiness. That's God's will. Absolute love and happiness, right? You're always being moved by that dimensionally larger reality. The only questions are by consciously moving with it or consciously being moved by the script or by that your 3D will trying to control things. That's the only question. The only question is, are you moving with that dimensionally larger reality? Are you surrendering your personal will or to God's will? Or are you resisting it and trying to make things happen, trying to force things in 3D reality, right? That's what we're talking about. Free will actually means freedom to select any idea you desire. Beyond that, free will ends and everything happens in harmony with the concept assumed. That's what Neville really said, right? That free will means freedom to select any idea you desire, the freedom to choose what you want to be, do, or have. But beyond that, it ends. And it's working in harmony with that concept assumed. Or in other words, as you imagine your end, as you choose what you want to be, as you assume that you are it and you have it, that now you're working in harmony with God's will. That's what let go and let God means. You're working in greater harmony with that quantum field, as it has all the information that it needs to bring everything for you and manifest in 3D reality. It's all coming through that. It's a delusion that other than assuming the feeling of wish fulfilled, you can do anything to aid the realization of your desire. That's what Neville meant, right? It's a delusion to think that in the 3D that you can do anything to hurry it up or to make it happen. It's all happening within that greater reality, within that greater will, within the quantum field, within that 99.999% of potential, right? Your free will to take action only works within the very limited, hear this, in linear world and only within the 3D. And beyond that, there's a greater will, or God's will, a quantum will orchestrating all of it, of which you are a part. So you're a part of that greater will or God's will. You're not separate from it. It's only when you believe you're separate from it that the struggle happens, that the efforting happens. And it's only when you finally give in and surrender that things start happening, things start moving in a direction. That's always the experience. It's never the struggle and the striving that creates it. It's only the releasing of resistance that brings it to you, right? So that action, you can take action. And remember, I'm not talking about inspired. There is action that you take that's aligned with that greater will. That's what aligned action is. That's what inspired action is, right? It doesn't matter what you do or don't do. As long as you're aligned with that higher power, as long as you're aligned with your wish fulfilled, as long as you're aligned with your imagined end, it will all lead you on the path of least resistance to everything you want, right? So remember, your heart feels and knows. That's God's will. That's the quantum will. It's feeling and knowing. Remember that you are only 0.0001% of physical reality and 99.9999% of non-physical energy of the quantum field. You are mostly potential to be something than you are something. That's so huge because we're so focused, all of our focus and effort is on that puny 0.0001%, trying to change that, trying to affect that, trying to affect the effects. When we're really, and it cuts us off from the potential of who we are, right? It's mostly your attention's mostly on that, of manifested reality, where the potential is puny and can only be moved by trying to make something happen. That's why you're limited. That's why really your free will is actually no will at all. It's mostly God's will. It's mostly 99.999% of that non-physical energy, right? Can you hear this now? That's why you want to align your will with God's, because most of it is potential. Most of it's potential to be something than it is something. Free will is limited to that 0.001%. 1%. Divine will, or God's will, or the quantum will, on the other hand, is wholly unlimited. It's spontaneous, and it moves in harmony with every other interconnected particle or wave of energy. It almost looks out of control, as quantum physics has shown us. That when you're not looking or not measuring, it's in and out of existence. Right? That's because it's working with everything that is, was, or ever be. Every thought, every feeling, every assumption, every action is all part of that, and you are part of that web of creation. And so when you're looking at reality, you're looking as reality. That's what we're talking about. This is what let go and let God really means. I am your host, Tom Caron, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. You can follow us on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful. We also have a group, the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors. You can join that. More and more of you are joining. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Caron. These social media platforms will have different things and different offerings. Soon there's going to be live events where I'll answer your questions live. All that's coming, guys, with great love, with great light, and infinite gratitude. This is Tom. See you soon.